an important colonial era measure called the Contagious Diseases Acts, enforced in multiple British colonies around the same time. Their goal was enforcing regular compulsory medical checks on women who engaged in prostitution. And this was primarily put in place in order to protect British soldiers and sailors in various British colonies. Now, in the context of Bombay, which is the site I focus on, there was a very racially stratified order in Bombay city, and there were large numbers of brothel workers from different parts of the world. So there were brothel workers from Japan, from various countries in Europe. The numbers of Eastern European women in prostitution were far smaller than the numbers of Indian women who worked to sell sexual services. So when I started out doing this work, I assumed that was primarily Indian women in brothels connected to cantonments that were the target of the CDA. But in the context of Bombay, it became clearer that the police were much more interested in primarily Eastern European who serviced sailors and soldiers. It answered several different imperatives. So first of all, there was a worry about the state officially tolerating or encouraging British or European men's access to Indian women in brothels. So they wanted to find an alternative to that because they didn't want to encourage interracial sex. They, at the same time, didn't want to tolerate the presence of British women in brothels because that was a threat to their national prestige. And so British women who entered brothels were often deported. So I find records of British women being forced to return to their homelands and women from Poland, France, Germany, Austria, Russia being allowed to stay. The state really didn't care much about the well-being of those women who are Indian. And when you look at the history of Kamatipura, which became named as the red light zone in the city in this period, it was largely because it was Eastern European women who worked there first. And actually there were large numbers of Indian women in prostitution who worked in other parts of Bombay, but those areas were not defined in the official imagination as red light zones, because what the state really cared about and sought to control was European women who worked in brothels.